This is the story of a little boy named Arthur Labinjo-Hughes, who came into the world full of hope but left it far too soon. At just 6 years old, Arthur's life was cut short by a cruelty unimaginable for anyone, let alone a child. His death, which shocked a nation, revealed profound failures in the very systems meant to protect him. This is a story of love, pain, betrayal, and a system that failed him. Arthur's early years were filled with joy and laughter, but as he grew older, signs of trouble began to emerge. His drawings and behavior at school hinted at a deeper issue, one that would tragically go unaddressed. In this video, we'll take you on a journey through Arthur's short life. We'll discuss the events leading to his tragic death, the investigation, the court trial, and how his story led to a nationwide reckoning. But more than just a tragic tale, this is a story about the importance of paying attention, about standing up when we see something wrong, and about making sure this never happens again. Arthur Labinjo-Hughes was a bright and cheerful boy, full of life and potential. His early years were filled with love and happiness, a stark contrast to the events that would later unfold. Arthur's family, like many others, had their ups and downs, but his well-being was always a priority. This story is also about the systems in place meant to protect children and how they sometimes fail. We'll explore the systemic failures that contributed to this tragedy and discuss what can be done to prevent future cases. Join us as we delve into Arthur's story, a story that has touched the hearts of many and sparked a call for change. Arthur Labinjo-Hughes was born on February 10, 2015, to Olivia Labinjo-Halcrow and Thomas Hughes. At first glance, Arthur had every reason to expect a bright future ahead. He celebrated his first birthday surrounded by family and friends, with a cake almost as big as him. Arthur loved playing in the park, especially on the swings, and cherished moments with his grandparents. But behind closed doors, the storm was brewing. Like many children, Arthur's life was shaped by his family. But for Arthur, his family was not a place of safety. Olivia, his mother, struggled with her own demons, substance abuse, toxic relationships, and a complicated history of failed connections. Thomas, Arthur's father, despite his love for his son, was also caught in a cycle of unhealthy choices. Arthur lived with his mother during his early years, but things were far from stable. Olivia's unpredictable relationships meant Arthur would be exposed to new dangers at an early age. There were frequent arguments, often escalating to shouting matches that left Arthur terrified. Olivia's substance abuse led to neglect, with Arthur sometimes left to fend for himself. Physical altercations were not uncommon, creating a chaotic and unsafe environment for Arthur. The instability and fear became a constant part of Arthur's young life. Everything changed when Thomas Hughes introduced Emma Tustin into their lives. At first, Emma seemed like a loving stepmother-to-be, but what followed would be the darkest chapter of Arthur's life. Emma, a woman with her own troubled past, came into Arthur's life and quickly became a figure of authority and control. Little did anyone know, she harbored deep resentment toward Arthur. Emma's presence in the household marked a sharp decline in Arthur's well-being. Neighbors reported seeing Arthur's distress. He seemed withdrawn, more isolated, and physically smaller. Emma had children of her own, and initially she appeared to be a caring mother. However, her past relationships were marred by instability and conflict. This instability soon spilled over into her relationship with Arthur, leading to a toxic and abusive environment. As time passed, the situation worsened. Arthur was subjected to tormenting physical abuse, psychological torment, and emotional isolation. The abuse took many forms: starvation, forced isolation, sleep deprivation, and at times, beatings. In early 2020, Arthur was often denied food, leading to severe weight loss. He was forced to stand for hours on end, sometimes from morning until night. Arthur's childhood became a nightmare, invisible to the outside world. But to those who knew him, it was clear something was terribly wrong. Arthur was essentially silenced, and while his family, neighbors, and even some social workers saw signs, none of them acted quickly enough. In April 2020, the abuse intensified. Arthur was forced to stand in isolation for up to 14 hours a day. He was treated like a prisoner in his own home, deprived of basic human needs and subjected to relentless cruelty. As the days passed, Arthur's health worsened. He became increasingly weak, malnourished, and emotionally drained. Emma and Thomas continued their cruel regimen. No one could stop it. No one could see it happening. Arthur's death was not a single event. It was a culmination of months of neglect, abuse, and mistreatment. But in his final days, he was pushed past the point of return. June 2020 would bring Arthur's tragic end. In his final weeks, Arthur's cries for help were met with indifference. Brief moments of kindness from friends were overshadowed by relentless cruelty. His interactions with others were filled with fear and isolation. When Arthur's life came to an end, the truth began to unravel. His injuries were too severe to be explained by accident. The authorities moved quickly to investigate. Police began questioning Emma Tustin and Thomas Hughes. Their stories didn't match the evidence, and as the details emerged, the public began to demand answers. Police discovered bruising, malnourishment, and signs of physical trauma. Emma Tustin and Thomas Hughes were arrested and charged, marking the beginning of a long legal battle. In 2021, the courtroom became the battleground for justice. Emma Tustin and Thomas Hughes faced trial for the brutal death of Arthur Labinjo-Hughes. The nation watched as the case unfolded, with intense media coverage and public scrutiny. Emma Tustin, charged with murder, and Thomas Hughes, charged with manslaughter, each faced tough questions. The prosecution laid bare the details of their monstrous acts, presenting harrowing evidence and testimonies. Key moments included emotional reactions from the audience and tearful testimonies from family members. Emma Tustin, life imprisonment, minimum 29 years. Thomas Hughes, 21 years for manslaughter. The verdict sparked widespread reactions, with many expressing relief and others calling for further systemic changes. Arthur's death became a symbol of child protection failures across the UK. His case sparked an outpouring of grief, rage, and calls for reform. People rallied for stronger laws, better education on child abuse signs, and an overhaul of social services. The public's reaction led to significant policy changes. New initiatives were launched to ensure better protection for children. Experts and community leaders emphasized the need for ongoing vigilance and support. Arthur's memory continues to inspire efforts to protect vulnerable children. Arthur's story is a tragic reminder of how important it is to protect our children, but it is also a call to action. If we learn one thing from this case, it's that we must speak up. We must be vigilant. We must act. Encourage viewers to support child protection organizations, educate themselves on the signs of abuse, and ensure that this kind of tragedy does not repeat. We must invest in training for social workers and community members, advocate for stronger policies and legislation, and implement comprehensive safety programs in schools. By coming together as a community, we can create a safer environment for all children. Let's honor Arthur's memory by making a difference. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and comment down below.